Hello everyone, welcome to Tencer Yoga. I'm Stephanie and I'm super excited to practice with you today. On the agenda for today, we have Iyengar Yoga for scoliosis. It's a practice that's very near and dear to me personally because I have scoliosis, and I thought what I would do is show you or take you through a practice of 6 poses that are kind of like my go-to poses when I'm feeling a little bit not so great because of my scoliosis, right? So I have a right thoracic, left lumbar curve. So what that means is that the right side of my body, like I'm more like this, the right side sticks out and then there's a small curve on the left, in the left lumbar. I talk a little bit about this as we go through the practice. And yeah, it's a really feel-good practice. So I hope you enjoy it. And if you do, and if you're enjoying my videos in general, the support would really mean a lot. I encourage you to click the subscribe button and yeah, follow me along as I continue to release new videos. Okay, enjoy the practice and let's get to it. Okay, so for this first pose, set yourself up near a wall and then have a brick or something to stand on to give you a little bit of height. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna stand on the block and place your concave side to start with near the wall. So for me, that's my left side, okay? And then reach your left arm up the wall as well. Okay, so I'm standing on the brick with my right leg. Left leg is just hanging here in space. And then I'm gonna make my left heel really heavy, excuse me, and reach down to the floor. At the same time, crawl your fingers up the wall and absolutely lengthen this side of the body. Okay, on the right side, roll your right shoulder back and extend down through your fingers. And breathe here. Okay, every once in a while, check back in, reach into your left heel, crawl your right fingers higher and higher up. Okay, and stay here for a bit. Breathe into it. Open up and create space between each row of ribs, particularly on that left side. Okay, and then release and step down. Okay, so one thing kind of as a principle to pay attention to here is that if this side is, bulging a little bit, which that's what happens for me, right? This side goes out. When I take this arm up, it very naturally pulls this side in. So there's a little bit of correction here that's happening when you do this. Okay, and I find it feels wonderful. So then turn around and you'll do the second side, but on the second side, I'm gonna do it a little bit differently. Okay, so this time I'm standing on the block with my left leg. Okay, I suck this left hip in, and as before, make the right leg heavy and just reach down there. Now the intention here with this side, because of the way my curves are, is to lengthen the lower waist. This area in here gets a little bit short, okay, because of the right thoracic, left lumbar. Okay, so I'm gonna make that really, really long and extend into my heel. Now here, I'm not gonna take my right arm up the wall. Okay, so you can just have your hand on balance for balance. Okay, roll the left shoulder back. Here, in fact, sometimes I'll still reach my left arm up to the ceiling, even without the wall, and get that crossed over effect so that I can open up through the thoracic and open up here through the lumbar curve. Okay, so both options would be good, either just by your side or up. And part of this is starting to understand in your own body where you feel tight, where you feel stiff, where there's a need for space. Okay, and then stay there for a little bit and then come down. Okay, and then just be for a moment in your utkatasan. And just start to feel after having done with height underneath one foot then the other. Observe yourself here. For this next pose, you'll need a chair. Okay, we're going to do a variation of utkatasan like this. Okay, so you can use a chair, you can also use a stool or a bench, maybe even a dresser, a taller piece of furniture, just something that you can put your hands on that's kind of higher up. Okay, so place your hands on your setup and then walk back like so and bend your knees. Now, once you're here, press your hands down onto the chair, rotate your upper arms, okay, rotate them, and slide your shoulder blades away from your neck. You can just look a little bit forward, just a little bit ahead of yourself, okay? Now, pound into your heels, and with your knees bent here, experiment a little bit with what's happening in your pelvis and your hips, okay? So reach your right hip back a little bit extra, right? So you're gonna, in a way, torque yourself. Reach that right hip back. Now again, for those of you with the left lumbar curve or the right thoracic left lumbar, this is a good thing to do, right? It's gonna lengthen that side of the side waist area there. And then come back to the center, okay? And then do the other side as well, and just see how it feels. Okay, if you start to feel you're compressing on the right side, then don't do so much, right? But sometimes a little bit of movement on the left side as well, taking that left hip extra back, you'll feel it even in the thoracic, right? So you can play around a little bit here, moving the hips back in different ways and sort of see how that feels for you. Okay, and then when you need a break, thighs need a break, bend your knees, walk forward, and stand back up. Next, let's do a very similar thing, but with straight legs. So it's Arda uttanasan. Okay, so for here, place your hands on the chair and again, walk back. Okay, but one thing I want you to sort of pay attention to, and this is maybe not typical, right? It's not the classical presentation of the pose, is I want you to set your legs up in such a way that you're intentionally reaching your hips further back than your heels. Okay, a lot of times it's taught, right, with the hips stacked over the ankles. Okay, but this time you're intentionally reaching those hips really far back. Okay, and again, it's, building on that same principle that we worked on in the utkatasan, you're aiming here to really lengthen the sides of the body. Okay, so now take your attention towards your feet, spread your toes, spread your toe mounds, broaden across your heels. Now press strongly down into your heels, lift your kneecaps, lift your thighs, and move your thighs back. Move your thighs back. Okay, now sharpen the corners of your hips. Sometimes I think of like zipper on the outer leg here and zip up into the hips, pull into the hip there. And then from the corners of the hips, reach back, then raise your eyes just a little bit, rotate your upper arms out, reach your chin forward, chest forward, hips back, chest forward. Okay, those of you with flexibility, for me it shows up, may have to resist the ribs in a little bit, right? So that you're not sinking into the pose. Okay, Arda uttanasan. And then you can stay here. I do this often. You can put your hands on the wall to do this, right? So it's kind of an easy one to do, and it just gives some really good traction for the spine. Okay, and you can also experiment like before, right, with reaching one hip a little further back than the other and sort of see how that works for you. Okay, now on the way out, when you're done, bend your knees, walk forward towards the chair. Okay, and then stand in Tadasana. Just stabilize, center yourself here, and breathe. Okay, so I'm being specific about how to come out of the pose, that you walk forward towards the chair for a reason. Okay, it can be a little stressful on the back, to like pull back and like this, and you don't want to strain everything after you've just really lengthened and created space. So walk forward towards the chair. Next, we're gonna do Adho Svanasana and a supported variation. Okay, you'll need a chair, a couple of bricks, and a blanket. And I'm using this folding chair. Okay, you can see the bucket of the chair will be facing the wall. And I'm placing a blanket just to soften this edge here a little bit and the bar. Okay, so just cover it with something. It's optional. If you don't find it a problem, you don't have to cover it with anything. Okay, and then you're gonna position your chair so that the legs are going right into the blocks here like so. Okay, then the top of the chair comes right where the legs start to meet into the pelvis, right into the groins there, so where you're hinging. Okay, and then you're going to hinge forward, walk your legs back, and then start to walk your hands forward, 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 forward. Okay, now if you're taller or longer than me, you may need to have more length here, right? So you may want another block after this first block here. Okay, and then just spend a moment here crawling your fingers and lengthening the sides of your body. Okay, shift your weight back towards the back of your toe mounds, towards your heels. Lift your kneecaps, lift your thighs, and allow the chair to penetrate in there. Okay, feel how you're touching the chair, right side and left side, and maybe there's a little bit of feedback that this prop can give you, right, in terms of whether you're straight, if you're leaning, how the weight is getting distributed. Okay, and then reach forward more and more and more. Okay, now one thing I like to do for my curves is I work with my right hand flat, the palm absolutely flat, but then I keep the left hand cupped, the fingers cupped, so it's just a little bit higher. And I start to walk that hand a little further even than the right one. So I don't know if you'll be able to see that exactly on the screen, but you can experiment with something in your own body that's similar. Okay, let the back of your neck release. And in some ways, it sort of feels to me like the hips are being held back, but then the torso can just kind of lengthen, release as you extend forward. It's almost, I mean, we work a lot in Iyengar Yoga with the ropes, right? So if you don't have access to the ropes, I find that this is a nice alternative for Adho Svanasana. Okay, breathe into it. Equalize the touch underneath your right foot, your left foot. Hips back, crawl forward. Okay, and then after you've been there for a bit, you can also just kind of soften a little bit. Right? Let the elbows bend, forehead down, and just be here. Okay, find some softness and some breadth across your upper back. Okay, and then on the way out, lift your head up again, and then slowly start to bring yourself back upright. Okay, it is an inversion, so just be mindful of that. If you feel a little bit unsteady once you come up, if you're near a wall, you can just recover yourself for a moment here like this. Okay, take the steadiness, the stillness from the wall back into your uttanasan. And then once you're steady, you can again stand fully upright. Next, we're going to do Parivrtta Adho Virasana. Okay, so kneel down, sit with your big toes touching and your knees a little bit apart, and then sit back. Okay, and then come forward here, and you're going to come forward and turn your head towards the right side and lay your head on the bolster. Okay, and then this left arm comes underneath. Okay, you can see my palm is facing upward. I'm gonna lift my hand up a little bit and then try to reach the fingernails almost a little further than I think they should go. Okay, and then I anchor back into my left hip. Right, I press the top of my left foot, my left shin, my left hip back down, and just experience that stretch, that broadening that comes through the left side of the shoulder blade there. Okay, the left side of the back and the left shoulder blade. It just really opens things up there. Okay, on the right side, you can just be passive with the right arm for now, and breathe. Okay, feel how your legs, your shins, your feet are touching the floor, and just, notice when the weight starts to shift around there, and see if you can remain fairly even. And again, you can crawl the fingers a little further away and re-establish that stretch. Okay, breathe into it. Okay, and then slowly release and sit yourself up. Okay, now I find, for me, more often than not, when I have pain that I attribute to my scoliosis, it is on my concave side, right? I will feel the pain very often in here. And so anything that kind of, stretches this side in this way, when things are, acting up, that feels really good. So this is one of those stretches that, if I'm not feeling so great, I'll do that. And then if that's the case, I'll only do that one side. Okay, most days I can do both sides and it feels good on both sides, and you should do the second side now if you try it out, see how it feels. But I just wanted to share that sometimes I'll only do the one side if I'm particularly cranky up there on that day. Okay, so we can do the second side, and I think what I'll do is I'm gonna repeat the same side. You can either switch or repeat, it's up to you, but I'm just gonna show it to you from a different view so that you can see that broadening. Okay, so again, toes together, knees apart, sit back, come forward, and then turn your head. This time you're gonna turn it to your left if you're doing the opposite side, right, than we did last time. And then lift the hand a little bit off the floor, reach it a little further than you think you should, and then anchor back into the opposite hip, right? And just experience there that stretch across the shoulder blade. Breathe into it. Okay, you can experiment with being a little bit active with the opposite hand. So for this side here, if you're doing the second side, it's this arm here, there'll be your left hand. You can push into the bolster a little bit and just sort of help to facilitate the turning a little bit. Okay, so you can see how that goes. So you might better enjoy having it passive, that's one way to approach it, or push a little bit into the bolster and facilitate the turn. Okay. And then release and bring yourself back up. Next, let's do Setu Bandha Sarvangasana, specifically with horizontal support, with broad support. Okay, so I've got a bolster, blanket, and a belt. Okay, you're gonna take the blanket and create a roller. Now, if you had multiple bolsters, then you could just very easily put one bolster and another bolster. So this is just an alternative to that. Okay, sometimes I actually do this with 3 bolsters, 1, 2, 3, and that works nice too. Okay, and then the strap is gonna be for your feet. Okay, so you'll place the strap on your arches, right? So you can work with it on your ankles. I happen to feel I have a little more control of my legs if I place it right at the arch there, like this. Okay, and then you'll roll the buttocks away, right? So the tailbone is sort of plugged in a little bit, and then come back, and then slide your shoulders down so that the top of the shoulders comes to the floor here. Okay, you're creating this dome shape of the chest. And the idea here in terms of finessing your setup so that it's serving you is the buttock shouldn't be hanging down, right? So, if you're much longer, maybe the one roll isn't enough. You would in fact need, 2 rolls or some extra bolsters or something, right? You don't want the buttocks to be sinking down. Okay, and then you can extend your legs to straight. Okay, hit your feet out against the strap. Turn the front of the thighs in and press your knees and thighs down. Okay, roll the corners of the shoulders down. Okay, make sure that you've got length at the back of your neck. Okay, and if you're not sure, you can take your hands, just gently lift your head and lengthen there. Okay, if you're really tight, if there's some tightness in the shoulders and your chin is pointing up, you may find you want to place another blanket there under your head, under your neck. Okay, and then just settle here. Now the idea here with this pose, from a scoliosis perspective, has a lot to do with the breath. Okay, so you've got that broad support behind you. And with each exhalation, see if you can direct your breath towards your concave side. Okay, so for me, again, it's my left thoracic, left side there. And with each exhalation, just want to soften these ribs and let that area on the back body descend into the support. Okay, so you just want to use that as a focus. So you can spend a few rounds of breath here. Watch as you inhale, watch as you exhale. Start to connect with the breath, with the rhythm of the breath, and particularly with the patterns, the route, the direction inside that your breath takes. Okay, and then see if you can coax your breath towards that concave side. Fill that area. Yeah. In fact, if I'm being a little more accurate, it's almost like on the inhalation, I direct my breath to the concave area, and then on the exhale, there's like a spreading and it descends. I want to fill the concavity and then also release any tension there, just into the support of the bolster. You can carry on with this. If your lower back is not so happy, okay, then please don't stay. If it doesn't feel good, don't stay in this position. You can bend your knees and place your feet flat on the floor. Have the feet a little bit apart, and you can even allow the knees to start to move a little bit towards each other, and just see if that releases the tension in the lower back. Okay, if it's still not okay, then roll to your side, come up. You can experiment with something a little bit lower and see if that does the trick. Okay. And then once you've spent your time here, you can bend your knees if your legs are still straight. And then you can either sort of push back or roll over to your side, whatever feels here a little bit more natural for you. I'm going to roll over and then push yourself up to sitting. Okay, sit straight, sit tall, and breathe. Okay, now if you have extra time here, you can then lay yourself out flat for Shavasana. And again, continue to focus on the breath. Okay, if time is short, this can be a suitable way to end, but just take a few moments here, almost like a seated Shavasana. Okay.